Welcome back. Today, I am going to explain to you what is happening in this market, and I'm not going to use any of the buzzwords that all the Timmies use, like manipulation, buyouts, or we're in a bubble. We're in a bubble. I'm actually going to explain it to you with very simple supply-demand economics, very simple numbers and data that are actually put out by Pokemon. Even though you have to use some guesswork, we're always operating with incomplete information, but you can at least get in the ballpark and understand why we are where we are, why we see Destined Rivals confirm sales of $370 on TCG Player, why you're seeing some of your favorite singles and slabs basically double overnight, and why everything is so scarce in today's market. So sit back, relax. I'll do my best to explain it in a digestible form. So first off, numbers that we do have that are public are Pokemon print runs. They put out that they printed 9 billion cards in 2022. And in 2024, last year, it was 11.9 billion. No idea what it's going to be this year. The year is not over. But there were 2.9 billion extra cards printed last year than there were in 2022. Now, mind you, in 2022, it's a very different world, very different hobby, right? We were being deflated from the big Logan Paul boom, from being stuck inside. You couldn't go outside because the air was toxic and there was a virus. And so you had to stay inside. You had to take your free money from the government and you had to, buy things that made you feel better and remember simpler times like Pokemon cards. Well, then 2022 came along and everyone could go outside magically again because, you could breathe fresh air again. And, people forgot a little bit about their hobbies. And Pokemon was still printing, like the demand was still there like it was the year before. And so you had tons of printing going on and you had the demand falling. And therefore we had massive price drops. We had times of stagnation and it wasn't a good time for the market. However, 2024 comes along, everything's picking back up again. And now we're in 2025 and the demand's through the roof. And so let's break down 2.9 billion cards. First of all, we don't know what that entails. Pokemon doesn't tell you, is that for every language? Is it just English? No one knows. We also don't know what that entails in terms of cards. Are code cards being counted? Are they not? Nobody knows. However, before we even kind of get into the nitty gritty of the numbers, right? You have to automatically subtract every energy brick, right? That pack of energies that you get in every single ETB, PC ETB, Build and Battle Stadium. Subtract every pre-constructed deck you get out of every Build and Battle kit, every Build and Battle Stadium. Subtract every promo card you get in every collection box, every tin, every whatever. All of those get subtracted off that 2.9 billion extra cards that actually go into packs. So we don't know how much that subtracts that number, but it's going to be quite a bit. That's a lot of cards, guys. Those energy bricks and every one of those products, those pre-constructed decks and every one of those products, that is quite a bit of cards. So subtract all that off the 2.9 billion extra cards. Again, we don't know what that number is. Then you divide that number by 6 sets being released last year. There were 6 sets if you include specialty sets. So you divide that number by 6 sets, okay? That will give you the number of how many extra packs were actually printed, okay? Then you divide that number by the pull rates of your favorite card in that set, like the Pikachu EX from Surging Sparks, which is, they say, according to TCG Player data, 1 in 960 packs to pull a specific SIR out of Surging Sparks. So then you divide that number we've already taken down by 1 out of 960. That is how many extra top pulls are actually being printed per year. It ain't that many. But everyone hears these large numbers and they immediately think, oh my gosh, this stuff's being printed into oblivion. There's millions of these out there. There's not. There's not. Guys, the Umbreon VMAX is one of the most popular cards of an entire generation. There's like 25,000 graded. There's 25,000 graded. Go look it up. It's Pop Report. And that doesn't even take into account everybody that is cracking their 8s and 9s or whatever and trying to resubmit them to try to get a 10. There's probably less of them out there. The card's been out for 4+ years. Everyone wants to grade the Umbreon. There's huge multiple on it. There's still only, like 18,000 10s, 25,000 graded. Where are they all at? And so when you start really digging into the numbers, you start realizing, wait, there may only be a few thousand extra of the actual hits being printed in Scarlet Violet era than there were back in Sword and Shield. Whatever it is, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 more hits, whatever it is. And then you start thinking, man, everyone's been talking about how bad the Scarlet Violet print quality is. Maybe I should look into that. Wow. The gem rates, the PSA 10 rates are much lower on Scarlet Violet era than they were in Sword and Shield. Wow, we might end up with like similar numbers to Sword and Shield PSA 10s, even if there's more out there. Wait, there's more demand in this era now than ever. So more people want them, meaning there's less available on the market. And now you get to why the prices are going up. These are the thought processes that people new to the hobby or people that want to get emotional and get angry don't go through in their head. There's another factor to this. People are worried about, why is sealed product so high, Alex? It must be manipulation. It must be a bubble. It must be all the evil investors putting too much away. It's not. It's the rip and chips. Said it before. Do this math for me, okay? If all of the high-end rip and chips, we'll say there's at least 100 high-end rip and chips across every platform, right? Because every platform's got their big, ballers, right? You got the eBay Live, you got the Fanatics, you got TikTok, you've got Drip, you've got Whatnot, you got YouTube, you've got Twitch. I'm probably missing some. Every one of those platforms has a certain amount of individuals that are pretty large streamers, and they all easily do with between 3,000 to 5,000 packs a week. Okay. So 3,000 to 5,000 packs a week times, I don't know, at least 100 streamers, 300 to 500,000 packs a week, multiplied by 4 weeks to a month, 12 months to a year. And then you obviously you can multiply those packs times 11 cards per pack, and you start to get really close to those numbers that are being printed in addition to what were printed in 2022. And so even though they used to print less cards than they do now, way more of it's being open now than ever. And so less and less of it is out there. And sure, there's more people putting it away now. I agree, but it's not to the extent that people think. It's just being ripped. The reason you know it's being ripped, when you look at older eras, the pack to sealed product price is a huge disparity. In Scarlet Violet era, there's a small disparity between loose pack and box price. Now, there's some sets that are just like through the roof. Like obviously 151 is massive disparities and other things like that. But most all the booster box sets, there's not much. A lot of the packs are selling for like $6 to $7, which if you multiply that by 36, you're in the 200s. It's very close to what a sealed box actually goes for on those sets. It's because the packs are scarce. It's not just the boxes anymore. The packs are that hard to find because they're being ripped in mass. They're all being ripped. And then you have to think about this. Well, Alex, if all the packs are being ripped and they're that hard to find, but there's that many more being printed, why wouldn't there be an influx of singles and slabs in the market? That doesn't make sense. Because what I just went through, there's not as many of the main top hits being printed in addition to what used to get printed. There's more, don't get me wrong, but it's not in these exponential numbers that people think. Think about the Umbreon EX from Prismatic Evolutions. It's one of 30 SIRs. It's estimated at 1 in 1,400 packs to actually pull one in Prismatic. Again, we don't know what the numbers are going to be in 2025, but let's say they're a little bit more than 2024. I mean, when you actually divide it out to the whole math that I did at the beginning of this video, and you take it 1 out of 1,400, you're not going to have that many more printed of Umbreon EXs as were printed of Umbreon VMAXs. And so when people start to realize this little by little, that is why you're seeing these cards in the market get more and more scarce. That is why you're seeing PSA 10 slabs seemingly jump up 50 to 100% almost overnight, because more and more people are buying them, understanding these are not plentiful. These are not endless. People want to share these population reports and say, but Alex, there's 10,000, there's 20,000 of them. What do you mean? And I say, there are literally millions of people trying to hop in these Pokemon Center queues when a new set's released. Every Target and Walmart and GameStop across the nation has lines of people outside it. If you add it all up, there's millions, right? Then you take it to the worldwide, the global scale. English is the most collected language. And so everyone across the globe that is into Pokemon is competing for these cards. And then you want people to believe that globally there's not enough wealth that can afford 15,000 of these copies, 20,000 copies. It doesn't make sense when you really break it down, but when you're just locked in your own little world, your own bubble, and maybe something feels expensive to you, you just want to get emotional and yell and scream that everything's manipulated, it's all a buyout, there's no way people can afford this. Sure there is. Bugattis sell out when they release a new Bugatti. Rolexes sell out when they release a new Rolex. You don't think people can afford a few hundred or a few $1,000 Pokemon card worldwide? You don't think people can afford to open $200 and $300 boxes worldwide? This is the hard part that people really have a trouble kind of getting over in their head, is understanding you're competing with a global scale. You're not competing with your friends in the neighborhood anymore. And the more and more people realize this, the more and more they're going to start grabbing these cards up, and the more they're going to see them rise, because they're going to realize these things are not plentiful. They're scarce. Guys, I talked about it before. Most every alt art on the market right now has less than 1%. Some of them have less than 0.5% of their entire population available on the market. A lot of these Scarlet Violet era booster boxes and booster box cases are more scarce on the market. There's less available for sale in less than a year than what some Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon XY sets were available after years and years on the market. Heck, they used to have boxes of Sword and Shield on Pokemon Center still available last year. You could still buy them then for MSRP. Maybe it was about a year and a half ago now, but years after release. Nowadays, you can't find a box under $200. Obsidian Flames running up in the mid threes. Paldea is in the mid fours. Guys, I actually looked. It took Evolving Skies, I believe, almost 3 years, over 2 years, 2 to 3 years to actually get to over $400 a box. So it took Evolving Skies almost 3 years what it took Paldea Evolve to in about half the time. Less than half the time. That should tell you where we're at. That should give you an idea of what we're seeing. By the way, Paldea Evolve, even though I love it, it's nowhere near the set that Evolving Skies is. That Magikarp is nowhere near the card that the Umbreon VMAX is. Which brings us to Destined Rivals. Everyone thinks this is a fluke. Everyone thinks this is going to crash. There's no way it's going to stay that high. There'll be reprints. There'll be price corrections. If you guys think for a second this box is not going to recover and fly as time goes on, if you think for a second this is not going to be a $1,000, multi-$1,000 box in the next 3, 5, 7 years, in my personal opinion, I think you're out of your mind, but you're all welcome to your own opinions. All I got to say, guys, is start diving into numbers for yourself. Start looking at print run numbers. Start trying to, do the math, even though it's incomplete math, and get an idea of what's out there. Start studying the population reports on Scarlet Violet versus Sword and Shield versus Sun and Moon. Look at the price points of what these cards have grown over time, different eras compared to now. Look at the box scarcity from Scarlet Violet, the pack scarcity on Scarlet Violet compared to Sword and Shield and other eras, right? Look at the time frames. Everything's been sped up. The timeline has been shifted. Everything is going to continue to happen faster and faster, and that's going to cause more and more people to call it a bubble, even though I think they're wrong. I don't think it's a bubble. I think if Pokemon eventually gets caught up with this printing and they start printing 15 billion, 20 billion cards, that will cool demand off. But if they're just going to keep upping it a little bit each year, goes from 11.9 to 12.2 billion to 12.5 to 13, it's not enough. Because again, it sounds like a lot, but when you do that math and you say, well, take out all the energy cards, all the bricks, all the pre-constructed decks, all the promos, right? Divide that by every set that was printed that year. Divide that by just the top hits in each set. There's very few amount of the cards from each set that people actually want that are being printed. And so that number is not going up enough to support all the new collectors that not only want them, but can't afford them. And so just some food for thought. It's a way to explain what's going on without getting emotional and just throwing out these buzzwords, right? Manipulation, buyout, right? It's a bubble. That's what's happening, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm out.